Yo, how's it been, huh? Today we're doing something a little different. I'm gonna be ranking all of my, or not all of my favorite, but like just the arcs in Berserk in general. I tried to do this video like a couple of times, but my computer glitched the hell out. That wasn't the main concern though, cause like I was still able to record everything. I just had to like edit it together. My issue was that instead of actually explaining why I liked each arc, I just did a really long summary of each arc, so I didn't do a good job explaining everything. Also, I got a couple of like the rankings, I guess, a little wrong. So I'm gonna like be reevaluating everything. I will be talking about spoilers, but not like a whole lot. That doesn't mean that like you can like I would still recommend either watch if you do want to get into Berserk and you don't want to be spoiled. Read the manga for sure. I definitely 100%. However, I'm not gonna be talking about anything too crazy. If I was, I would probably age restrict the video because I'm gonna be making more Berserk videos like character analysis and then like also like my whole journey and like my entire all of my thoughts and opinions about it. Those videos will be more in depth, more spoiler heavy, and definitely like probably slap an age restriction on there because I don't want to like shy or dance around anything. I want to talk about everything, and this is a pretty like explicit and uncomfortable series at times. So yeah, but I'm still gonna be talking about some important stuff. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy. I will warn you, I feel like a lot of you guys aren't going to agree with my opinions, and I can't even blame you. I won't be upset. If anything, if you do have something to say, like you want to argue with me, I'll be more than happy with that. Like, please, just leave a comment, please. I'm getting desperate now. Come on. Anyway, let's rank everything. Black Swordsman arc. I give this a B. It's definitely the weakest in terms of writing, and there's a lot of like out of character moments. Like Guts has always been like a really like angry dude, but like usually, but like in all the other stories, there's usually like you can tell that it comes out of like a sense of like pain and loss. Whereas in Black Swordsman arc, Guts really is just like an edgy asshole for no reason. Again, there's more to it than that, but that's not very fun. However, it's also Puck's introduction, and Puck makes a very good contrast to Guts, and and this is also where I think Puck like shines the brightest, which kind of sucks. That means it's going downhill from here. I have more to say on that, but yeah, it's also got some pretty cool fights, and one thing I really like is the ending. Like basically, I like all Berserk arcs, but even the ones that like I was less as a fan of, the ending was more than enough to save it. And that was the case here because the ending of the Black Swordsman arc it introduces the God Hand, who are like the main villains, including Femto, aka Griffith. So yeah, and like we see the flashback. So it does. So Kentaro Miura, rest in peace. He did not finish his story. The assistant, one of his like assistants, is taken over, and like I read like the recent chapters. I read everything. Great, brilliant. Was not what I was expecting it to be. But moving on, Kentaro Miura was still trying to decide what to do. All he really had down was that like Guts and Griffith were friends, but now they're enemies. And I also like the ending because in the ending, when Guts kills the Count, the Slug Apostle, and the daughter's like really angry about it, she's swearing that she's gonna kill him. At first, Guts is like, whatever. I'm looking forward to it. And then when Puck tries to like tell Guts like, man, why you always gotta do this stuff? We see that Guts is actually crying. Yeah, it's this image right here, and yeah, like he looks really different from like any other time. He just looks really young and lost. That's actually something really interesting is that because of Kentaro Miura's like early art style, all the characters looked like a little strange. But that's not a bad thing though. Like if anything, like I said, it helps emphasize how like young and everyone looks. But yeah, I would consider Black Swordsman like a B arc. I would give it a B minus if anything. Like it's good, but Kentaro Miura was still definitely trying to like figure out what he was trying to do, which I mean that leads us to Golden Age. Uh, I mean, come on, we already know. First off, I wish they used a different image because it's like, really, you're gonna use that? I didn't come up with this tier list. Like, this was just the one that like I felt was like the most necessary because the thing with Berserk arcs is Every arc is so freaking long that they could be made up with a bunch of mini arcs. Like for example, freaking Fantasia has like 5 different arcs going on in it. You could say the same about Golden Age. Golden Age. How many chapters was Golden Age? Because it was a bunch. But yeah, Golden Age is the backstory of Guts from his childhood to his time with Casca and Griffith and the other rest of the band, the Hawk members, Judo, Pippin, Rickard, Corcus. Rest in peace to them all. It's really good, and there's a reason like why Golden Age is the one that gets adapted all the time. It's got the '97 anime. It's got the 2013 Golden Age anime movies, both of which are great. Like I love the Golden Age movies. I haven't seen the '97 anime yet in its entirety, but I've seen bits and pieces. It's still pretty solid, especially for something from like the late '90s. Congratulations, everyone did a bang up job. 2016 anime though, oh, man, that was dog shit. Oh, it's so bad. Oh my god. Like I usually, the sad part is I actually try to give 3D anime a chance. Like for example, I loved Ajin Demi-Human. It was 3D, but like I still loved it. And like there's plenty of anime that do a great job of incorporating the 3D into the 2D, like Chainsaw Man, which is what they should have, which is what they did in the Golden Age movies. Like that's what they do. So I don't know why they didn't do it with like the 2016 anime. It's just horrible looking. Moving on from that though, yeah, Golden Age is the one that usually gets adapted. I hope we get a future Berserk adaptation that like goes into like the current stuff and not the backstory. But it's still really good. This is when Kentaro Miura actually was like starting to consider like fleshing out like all the characters. I find it funny because there was someone on Reddit. I wish I could find their post, but I can't. I could, but it's gonna take too much time. But he or she worded it perfectly. They said something along the lines of, "Golden Age was basically like if I it was basically just, oh wow, I need a backstory. Hold on, maybe I'm actually cooking. What if instead of making just some edgy story about violence, I actually like work on it to flesh it out and make an actual universe out of this?" And that's basically what happened. At first, it was just a backstory, but like the writing was so good. Guts grows as a character, introduces a whole bunch of other colorful characters. It has a whole like rise and fall for everyone, really. Like especially like, and it's like I said, I don't want to talk about it too much because like I said, this is more for like the longer videos. But I guess we can talk about a little Griffith. Ugh, I already knew what Griffith was like, but going through all of that again, it's just so weird because it's like he really is like the most complex character. Like I'm not defending anything he does. Like we know he's a dirty motherfucker, but like, god damn, like I almost felt bad for. I mean, even then, like everything was still his fault because even back when he was like human, he was still like a raging narcissist. Like he he didn't treat his people right, for lack of a better word. Like they all worshipped him, but like he didn't care. No, that's not true. He cared. He did care because in the infamous eclipse scene where he sacrificed him to God Hand, the way the sacrifice stuff works is you can only sacrifice people you actually love and care about. So he had to have loved and cared about. I know he loved Guts though. Guts was like his one and only friend, which is what makes it all the worse. I don't know, but Golden Age is pretty solid. I don't think it's perfect though. I think it's got like a couple of like unnecessary, like Wild. Y'all know Wild. He's that stupid like gorilla apostle. He is so nasty. Even then, I don't think Wild was completely unnecessary. Like, because like he did show like apostles could be a very serious threat from the future, and yeah, that was true. However, I feel like there was still like a lot of like nasty stuff that didn't need to be shown. I also don't like how Costco is written. Not as a whole. I love Costco's character. Just I just don't like that scene because I was expecting Costco to like help team up with Guts and they could take Wild down together, but instead Wild just does a lot of nasty pervert stuff with Costco, which is really weird, especially since even more disgusting nasty pervert stuff happens in the eclipse. So it's like, well, what was the point of this? Like, I don't know. But other than that, though, it's still like a pretty good arc. Guts, like it explains Guts, it explains Casca's backstory, it explains Griffith. Guts and Casca, like I said, they have like a rise and fall. They build up, but then the eclipse, everything comes crashing down. Griffith has like the opposite. he rises and then he falls because what happened. The reason why Griffith turned evil is like when Guts left, he became a moron. Griffith became a moron and and like started clapping Princess Charlotte, and then the king had him tortured for that, which was really messed up. That's why I said I felt bad for Griffith because like he got tortured like really horribly. Like he had his tongue cut out, he had his arms and tendons cut out so he could never hold a weapon or even walk. And then I'm pretty sure the prisoner, I mean the torturer dude also did some Diddy stuff because he even said we were so close, like we was husband and wife. And it's like so that's nasty. So like a part of me feels a little bad for Griffith, but like that still doesn't excuse everything else he does. Like hell fucking no, it doesn't. But yeah, Griffith has a rise and then a fall, and then he has a rise again because he becomes Femto, the Hawk of Darkness. He wishes for wings, and he only keeps rising higher. Speaking of another thing I like about the Golden Age arc, even though the God Hand were introduced in the Black Swordsman arc at the end, they didn't really hit as hard in that one. I mean, they were still cool, don't get me wrong, but like I feel like in Golden Age, the God Hand just have so much more presence. I especially love the ending. In the ending, there's a guy named Skull Knight, and this isn't the first time Skull Knight shows up. He shows a little bit afterwards in the Golden Age because when Guts leaves the party, he calls Guts a struggler and warns him that like from here on out his life will only get harder and it's up to Guts to survive, to persevere, to struggle. And I love what happens I mean I don't love the eclipse like hell no, but what I do love is that in the eclipse when literally everything seems lost, like Guts and Casca are about to be destroyed, freaking Skull Knight just comes charging in on his ghost horse, riding down the eclipse. He immediately tries to stab Void, and then Void creates a freaking like vortex that shoots the sword back at Skull Knight. So Skull Knight has to parry his own attack, and it's like, what the fuck? And then Skull Knight successfully carries everyone out, and it's like it's really cool, but it's also kind of like scary because you would maybe hope that Skull Knight could save them, but I mean he saved the day, but like it was too late. Everyone else is dead. The only surviving members are Guts, Casca, and Rickard, and that's because Rickard was never like in the eclipse. Like he he's the little boy. Basically, like he was off doing something else, and by the time he arrived, like he didn't get sucked into like the evil pocket dimension. So that's good. It still ends on a pretty somber note, though, because Casca's mentally regressed to like a childlike state, if you could even call it that. It's more like she has like severe Down syndrome. It's like even though it kind of drags on in that moment, it definitely feels very like harsh and realistic. Guts is broken beyond relief. Even though the Golden Age movies don't like fully capture the manga, I do think the Golden Age movies expand on some stuff a little bit better, especially the ending, because Guts has a flashback to when everything was just happy and perfect, aka the Golden Age, and it just hits so much harder. The music too. It's really good arc. Damn. Moving on. Lost Children. Funnily enough, I actually rated Lost Children as a C originally. I don't know why. Like I had to go back and reread it. I'm like, there is no way Lost Children was a C. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm still gonna put it as like a B, but like I'd rate it as like a B or a B plus, whereas Black Swordsman is a B minus. Lost Children's a really good arc. It goes back to the present. It's a lot like Black Swordsman, where it's about Guts and Puck, and Guts is doing like his thing, where he's just like killing apostles like left and right. But it feels a lot different and better because A, we know how Guts got to where he was, and B, Guts is like more in character where he's still an asshole, but like I said, instead of it just being like feels like a weird like edgy dude, you can tell that Guts is like feeling a lot of pain and loss. And Rosine, she's the weird moth apostle in this thing. She herself is a really like great villain because the thing about the apostles, even though you've got a couple of them like Wild, who's just like nasty, most of the apostles, even though they're monsters for sure, both physically and mentally, you can still tell that there's human in them. And Rosine is definitely an example of that because Rosine's backstory is very tragic. She was an abused child and like she wanted to escape to like the elf realm. And the same thing happens to her best friend Jill, and This might be weird, but in a weird way, I almost consider Jill the main character of the Lost Children arc, not Guts. Not to say that Guts is the main character like of the whole story. I'm just saying in this specific arc, I feel like a lot of it comes from like Jill's point of view. And yeah, like Jill goes through the same stuff, which and the reason why I want to talk about this is like I think that similar to Black Swordsman arc, the ending of Lost Children is very, very powerful. I wish I could pull it up, but like it is so good. Basically what happens is after Guts kills Rosine, which is a really well done but graphic battle. My only issue is maybe I'm wrong, but like when I was reading, I feel like it kind of took way too long though. Like it just felt like it kind of dragged. But it's still a crazy ass battle. Like, and another thing that I think is really cool is that like Guts feels like his most violent like here because like everyone else, even Rosine and the other monsters, are commenting that Guts himself is the monster. But going back to him, like the ending, Jill, I mean not yeah Jill. She's like she also wants to escape the village and she thinks she can learn from Guts and she's like saying Guts, take me with you. Like I can't live in this place anymore. I need to find sanctuary. And then Guts says, "Oh yeah, look around me." And like they're in a cave surrounded by dark spirits, and Guts himself is like a blacked out shadow. And he says, "There is no paradise to escape to. This is what you get when you're with me." And Jill's like, "Wait, what? No, no." And then Guts like wraps her up in his cloak to protect her. And he's like, "I'm sorry. There is no paradise for you to escape to. Go back home." And then yeah, Jill just kind of like accepts that that's her life. That on its own is very powerful. But what I like even more is that Puck decides that even though he's very like disappointed with like what Guts has kind of like become, he still wants to follow Guts to like make sure he's doing all right. And at first, Guts is very annoyed, but then he says Puck, which is like that. You're probably thinking like, what he called him Puck? Like, what's wrong with that? It's like usually Guts refer to him as like Bug or something. Like he never refers to Puck by name, but he called him Puck, and then Puck is like, "You call me by my name?" And Guts he literally just starts laughing, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what, Puck? I'm kind of glad you're around. It's hard." Or he doesn't say that, but he says like, "It's hard to take things seriously whenever you're around. I just can't help but smile." So it's like, yeah, like I said, Lost Children, Black Swordsman arc, not my favorite arcs, but they are the endings like make up for like whatever personal issues I have with them. And even then, like they're still very like there are no C or D Berserk arcs in my opinion. There's C or D like moments for sure. Like this ain't a perfect series. Like it's got its flaws, but I really do think that like as like a whole, each storyline like does everything pretty well. Moving on, Conviction. Conviction's an A. The reason why I like Conviction is A introduces Farnese and Serpico, the Holy Sea Knights, and like for spoiler alert again, Farnese and Serpico do end up joining Guts, but like they start off as his enemies. The first half of Conviction is kind of boring, but I would so like if it was so like I would low key kind of like the first half I would low key put as a C, but as a whole I really like it because in the second half, Casca makes a comeback because well I wouldn't call it a comeback, but she is like once again like showing up because Guts has to like she accidentally ran off from home and Guts has to go find her, and the villain Mosgus is very interesting because Mosgus is definitely like an allegory for like church corruption or like religious corruption, like what happens when someone's like a zealot. And yeah, he definitely, even though he thinks he's right, he's definitely taking things too far. He kills everyone he deems a heretic. However, a lot of the heretics are people who aren't even like atheists or pagans. They just want like the church people to behave better, which in Mosgus's eyes is against God. Ah! However, there are some weird cult shit going on, and they was like, and that shit was weird, and that was also kind of like scary because they think Casca's a witch because since she was branded, a lot of the spirits like gather around her, but eventually like Guts like helps save the day. He helps save Casca, He defeats Moscus. It's pretty epic. And then Farnese and Serpico, even though Farnese and Serpico were originally enemies, they're helping Guts out. And additionally, we get another person. His name is Isidoro. He's a young kid, but he's not like Rickard. Rickard's a very polite and humble, naive guy, whereas Isidoro is a very very like crass and upbeat, like kind of arrogant. But he's a good dude, and he really shines in this arc. Even though he kind of acts like a moron, he still like helps out and he contributes. And again, very powerful ending. What happens is they basically kill all the spirits, and then they kind of reflect that like, wow, a lot of the people that were like trying to pray to God like kind of failed because they didn't really like care about protecting themselves, whereas the people that protected themselves were able to save themselves and save the people that they loved, which some people not might not vibe with that message, but I do, because like even though I am a believer to a certain extent, I'm also a believer in the sense that I don't think God is here to like solve all our problems. It's like you can believe in him all you want, like that's perfectly fine and valid, but it's like at the end of the day it's still your life and it's your responsibility as well. And but yeah, so Conviction I think is a pretty like solid A, maybe an A minus because like I said I don't really like the first half, but I still find it enjoyable. Millennium Falcon. Yeah, yeah. Millennium Falcon is like when the story becomes fucking gas. I mean, this whole story was good, but Millennium Falcon is actual gas. Because what happens is at the end of Conviction, I forgot to mention this, but at the end of Conviction, Griffith like resurrects, and that might sound weird. Like, what do you mean Griffith resurrects? Well, let me explain. Yes, Griffith was a God Hand member, but the thing is, the God Hand members, even though they're super powerful, they still live in their own weird pocket dimension. What happened with Griffith though is that he resurrected into like the physical realm, so he has a human body again. And not only that, he looks strange because well, I guess I kind of spoiled it, but yeah, this is what Griffith looked like at first. Oh wait, no, but and this is what he looks like now. Like Griffith was always seen as like a seen as a very beautiful and charismatic guy because he was in both physicality and personality. However, in the once he's been resurrected, he's seen as a little angel. Everyone is entranced by him. Even Guts, when at the end of Conviction, when Griffith first resurrected, he even said like for a second I literally forgot all my hatred, but then it came back tenfold. And yeah, so the reason why it's called Millennium Falcon is because Griffith, now that he's upon the Earth, he immediately starts doing his dream, which was to build his empire. The Falcon of Millennium. Hold on. Sorry about that. But yeah, he goes up to building his empire. He fights the Kushan Empire, who are like an enemy faction of Midland. That's like that's its whole story in and of its own. But it's really cool because Griffith starts building, like I said, he builds his own army, and it's so unfair because he has an army of apostles. Like, not only does he have Zod by his side, who's already a force of nature in of himself, but he has a bunch of other apostles. He basically has the Avengers, the Power Rangers on his side. Meanwhile, Guts is like depressed as hell in the beginning of Millennium Falcon because he was trying his best to escort Casca to the Elf region because Puck says like my home place can help Casca restore her mind so she's back to like normal. But the problem is like when they was fighting, when Gus was like helping fighting, he started getting overtaken by an alternate personality called the Beast of Darkness, and the Beast of Darkness is Guts' like worst intrusive dot. So he accidentally strangled Casca, so now she hates him. And then I won't go into full detail, but he actually attacks her again, so that makes things even worse. for both Casca and also himself, because Guts is wondering what the fuck was wrong with him to do that. But Farnese, Serbico, and Isidoro all show up, and Guts is like, normally I would turn these assholes away, but right now I really need them. So while it's unfortunately not very strong, Guts does have his own support system. And to make things even better, we get another couple of characters, Shirke and Ilfavera, if I'm pronouncing that right. Shirke is a witch, and Ilfavera is her own elf, just like Puck. And Shirke is very important because, in addition to the apostles, more monsters show up, the trolls and ogres. Unlike apostles, who were humans who became monsters, trolls and ogres are monsters from the astral realm, and they are not as intelligent as apostles or as like have as much variety, but they're still, you do not want to fuck with them. They're horrible. So Shirke was sent to help retrieve everyone. She retrieved all the party members, and B, she also was like meant to get rid of all the trolls because she's a magician. She knows how to like do a whole bunch of fancy spells and stuff like that. And my favorite part of the Millennium Falcon arc is when later on Shirke's master unfortunately like passes away because the freaking Guts' Avengers team ambushes them at their house, and Shirke's teacher, the master, Flora, she gets set. Her home gets set on fire. Meanwhile, the leader of the Guts Avenger team, Grunbeld, he's a dragon apostle, and he's like hammering the shit out of Guts, and he's like, man, like I expected Zod talked so much about you, and even though I like Grunbeld, I was very annoyed with him at this point because like, dude, clearly Guts is injured. He is not fighting to his full capacity. Leave this dude alone. And then things get desperate, but they have a weapon on their side. There is an armor called the Berserk armor. And what do you know? It has Skull Knight's face on it. That's very interesting. So Guts puts this Berserk armor on, and he tears up some monsters. But then what's even cooler is that when Guts puts it on, the helmet literally starts changing until it becomes this. And the reason why is because Skull Knight sees himself as like a Grim Reaper kind of guy. But Guts is a mad dog. He's a rabid animal. Like for example, like I said, his alternate personality was the Beast of Darkness. This is what the Beast of Darkness looks like. And it's even telling him when he puts on the armor, it's telling Guts like, let go. Destroy everything. So Guts puts it on and he starts fucking up Grunbelt, and it's like the coolest fight scene in like the entirety of like the Berserk series. I think that's not true. There's like a lot more epic battles going on, but in like if we're talking about a pure like 1v1, it's such a good fight scene. Like it is so good, and like I love when Guts has a Berserk armor on. And what I love about the Berserk armor, especially the way that, if y'all know who Weeb MD is, it's him and his daughter, and they review a bunch of manga, and she's the one that got him into Berserk. It was actually a Surus manga, which is nasty work. But going on, he quoted the Berserk armor in the best way possible. When you want a sword if you want a weapon or an armor, you usually go to the elves. But if you can't do it with the elves, you go to the dwarves. But the tricky thing about the dwarves is they're a cantankerous folk. So whatever they give you, it takes from you. They're gonna need something from you. So the way the Berserk armor works is it boosts your rage and takes away all your pain, fills you with nothing but anger and adrenaline. But at the same cost, it does, if you get injured, it does not heal you. It pierces you back together. It nails your bones into place. It relocates your limbs and twists them until they're right. But because you can't feel any fear or any pain, if you keep fighting, you will die. And that's what happened to Skull Knight. they imply that the last person who wore the armor, he fought until he lost every last drop of blood. So it's up to Shirke to go into Guts' mind with her powers to bring him back. And it only gets uphill from there. Meanwhile, Griffith's journey is also crazy on his own because he's rebuilding Midland. He's tricking everyone into thinking he's a savior. And then he changes the landscape of the story forever. Because what happens is Ganishka, the demon emperor of the Kushan, he's fucking everything up. He's turning all his soldiers into monsters. He's about to take over the world. He even, unlike most apostles who are loyal to the God Hand, Ganishka says he's gonna kill Griffith and the rest of the God Hand because he is the emperor. The world belongs to him. And then Ganishka even like he was already an apostle, but he like manufactures fake Baalids to become an even stronger apostle, known as the Shiva Ganishka. He becomes this towering beast, this freaking titan. But what makes it even scarier is that Griffith turns into Femto again. He can just do that. And not only that, School Knight ambushes him. And if you look at School Knight, his sword's a little different because he infused it with Baalids. And the reason why is when you infuse School Knight's sword with Baalids, it becomes a sword of actuation. It's supposed to banish demons like Femto into like the astral realm. But when he tries to stab Femto, Femto grabs the slice, he turns it into a ribbon, and then he slams the ribbon into Ganishka, and he dies and turns into a statue. So not only does Ganishka die, so Griffith just takes all the credit for that, but he also tears a hole into the astral realm, so all the monsters, the trolls, the ogres, the dragons, they all escape into the real realm, and the world is now known as Fantasia. Fantasia. Fantasia is my favorite arc. Like y'all probably thought Millennium Falcon was, but no, no, no. Everything that Millennium Falcon does, Fantasia does even better. Actually, that's not true. Fantasia is. I would think a lot of people would put Fantasia at like B or even a C, and I will give them credit because to give credit where credit is due. A lot of the things that I don't like about Berserk and what a lot of people didn't like about Berserk did start in Fantasia. That is true. Also, if we're going back to real time, Fantasia had a huge ass hiatus, so that pissed a lot of people off. But the reason why I like Fantasia is that everything I liked about Millennium Falcon, which was Guts having his own crew, Guts having Shirke as his support system, she's almost like his daughter. Like their bond deepens even more, and they also fight like a lot cooler monsters. Like for example, Guts and yeah, they fight the freaking Sea God, which is this damn thing. And then inside the Sea God is all these freaking monsters. And yeah, like the Sea God fight is probably also like a really strong favorite of mine just because of how metal. Like, look at this shit. Like, goddamn. So yeah, it's really good. So like the first half, it's not like a whole lot of story. It's just more like a bunch of fights because they're on a boat. But like, I guess I've talked about what I like. Let me talk about the things I didn't like. Like I said, Isidoro, he's the young kid involved. However, Isidora's character kind of like he kind of like falls off, and Puck also falls off because Isidoro and Puck just become like comedic relief, for lack of a better word. Like Puck, even though he was always supposed to be a comedic character, he even breaks the fourth wall a couple of times. But like at first, he used to be funny. Now it just becomes very annoying. But Isidoro doesn't fall that down. He actually, what I do like is that there's another character that joins them. She's a mermaid called Isma, and Isma kind of becomes like Isidoro's love interest. And I like Isma because Isma is a pretty like bright, happy character, but she also like reels in Isidoro's like antics. Because even though I like Isidoro, one thing that like was kind of annoying me was that Isidoro is constantly like beefing with Shirke because Isidoro he expected to be like Guts's like main like student or student, but like Shirke actually takes all of Guts's attention because Shirke's magic is like what fuels Guts and it helps him keep on going. Whereas Isidoros kind of more like a little trickster. Like he's a good fighter, but he's not like he's still a little boy, so he can't fight the way that Guts does, and he didn't have the same training that Guts did. So Isidoro feels very insecure, so he's always like kind of like on Shirke's case, which while it's a great for storytelling, it personally annoyed me. Like leave this girl alone, please. But like I said, Isma brings out the best in Isidoro for the most part. So even though a lot of people didn't like her, and I'm not gonna lie, Isma does have some pretty cringe scenes. Speaking of, I will say this: Shirke, I love her, but she has some very cringe scenes because her elf partner Ifilvera, she keeps trying to like ship Guts and Shirke, but that just doesn't work because a Shirke is like young as hell, so Gus sees her as more like his daughter, and even Shirke herself like doesn't really like Gus. Like I mean, she does have a little crush on him at first, but it's really more of like just an admiration thing. So I don't mind Shirike's like crush because I could see that happening from the beginning, but like I said, it doesn't really amount to anything, so it feels natural. But I don't like that Elphabera keeps saying like, oh, like Farnese is gonna steal Guts from you, or Casca like, man, shut up! I'm not trying to think about that. So yeah, Shirke has some cringe scenes. Isma has some cringe scenes, but I'm still very glad that they're in the story. They make things a hell of a lot better. The reason why Fantasia is ranking so highly, though, why I consider it my favorite arc, is because at the end of it, they reach the Elfhelm place, and like, I love Elfhelm because it's such. And Berserk was so bleak, but Elfhelm is a literal paradise. It is so happy. It's literal sunshine and rainbows. Like, how could you not like love a place like this, man? Like, all the magical creatures are just having fun and enjoying themselves. The elf queen, she's very like lovely and understanding. And not only that, they finally restore Casca. At first, I was very annoyed. Like, how long is this gonna take? Why is Casca such a potato? Like, can they please heal her mind? It's so annoying. But they finally do it, and it's done so beautifully because what they do is Farnese and Shirke go into Casca's mind, and like her interpretation of the eclipse is so freaking like tragic and like terrifying. It's also a lot more abstract, and I kind of love the symbolism because Griffith, he's not Griffith, he's like a giant like hawk pterodactyl thing, and Guts is a literal like hound. He's a Doberman with a missing leg. So it shows that Casca doesn't hate Guts as much as we thought. Because while she does fear him, and rightfully so, she still was able to realize that Guts was still her protector. And I think that's kind of like very like emotional in its own right. But they finally go through her mind, and like Casca, the Casca we know is restored. However, it's not perfect because even though she loved Gus and was looking forward to seeing him, she still can't see him. She still can't talk to him because like her mind is still clouded from like everything that happens. She still has flashbacks. It's terrifying. However, Gus thinks things are gonna look up because a previous companion from Millennium Falcon and Fantasia was the Moonlight Boy. Moonlight Boy was a strange boy that like would show up every full moon, and he seemed to have an attachment to both Guts and Casca, but more towards Casca. However, Casca was very happy to see him again because now she can actually talk to him and take care of him. So Guts was like happy to take the Moonlight Boy to Casca. However, just when all seems right, the Moonlight Boy transforms into Griffith. He transforms into Griffith. Griffith takes over his body, and like that's because the Moonlight Boy has always was always Griffith. Like not as a personality. The Moonlight Boy was not manipulated. Like the Moonlight Boy actually was Casca and Griffith's son, but Griffith used the embryo as like a host the return to the real world. That's how he resurrected. So Moonlight Boy was his weakness because every full moon he would become vulnerable and transform into him. So what Griffith did was he lured he lured his way into Elfhelm, and then when he transformed, he kidnaps Casca with him and escapes and takes Casca to the Millennium Falcon Empire, so that way he doesn't transform into Moonlight Boy because Casca's with him, or if he does, he doesn't leave because Casca's with him the whole time. And it's so horrible because unlike the last time Griffith did this to Casca, Gus was full of rage. But now Gus is just depressed. Like he literally has no fight in him left because it happened again. And not only that, Griffith like sunk Elfheim into the stratosphere. Like it disappears. Even like a lot of the astral beings disappear. Even Isma disappears. The only ones who are still left are Puck and Ilfavera. I don't know how they still are, but I'm glad they are. Like even though they annoy me, I would not want Puck and Ilfavera to have just like disappeared and fade away into nothing like that. But yeah, Fantasia went from the happiest arc to probably the saddest one, and it hurt so much because literally I was literally smiling ear to ear when I was first reading it, and then when that happened, I literally felt like because here's the thing, I already knew about the eclipse stuff. I read that back when I was in high school, so it was just like whatever, just get it over with. But this, I actually I knew about this happening too, but I didn't expect it to happen like that. So I literally felt the pain for real this time, man. Oh my god. And that's how we came to here. I hope you enjoyed my tier list and my rankings, my recap of everything. I hope I explained everything in a concise manner. I tried this yesterday, but like I said, it didn't work out. This time, I think I did a better job. Anyway, if you're a Berserk fan or a fan of my channel, I highly doubt that 'cause I got fans. What am I talking about? But even so, I hope you like. I don't even care about like. I hope you comment. I genuinely want to know how did you guys feel about this story, my takes on this story. Anyway, that's about it. Take care, everyone. I don't know if I'm gonna upload soon, so all I can say is happy holidays, have a wonderful Christmas, and a happy New Year.